If you're ready to stop building someone else's dream and start creating your own, join our free community, the Self-Directed Network, at acesmanagementinc.com/school. It's where people leaving their W-2s come together to build freedom, purpose, and momentum toward what's next. Welcome to Life After W-2. I'm your host, John Chan. After 17 years in corporate America, I made the leap to build my own business. It was messier than I thought it would be, but also full of valuable lessons I didn't know I needed. This show is about sharing shifts in mindset, pivots in strategy, and personal changes that come with pursuing financial freedom. You're not alone in this. We're all figuring it out, one step at a time. Welcome to Life After W-2. In this episode, Aloysius Carl shares his journey from corporate leadership at Dun and Bradstreet to entrepreneurship, opening up about the ethical challenges, mindset shifts, and personal growth that came with that transition. We talk about sales strategies, emotional intelligence, and finding financial security through self-directed retirement accounts and real estate. Then Al flips it around and starts interviewing me, which continues in part 2 of our conversation. Aloysius, welcome.
Thank you, John. And please call me Al.
Al, okay, perfect. Al, so tell us a little bit about your W-2 life.
Well, so I've got a split W-2 life. So I'm going to talk to you about my first one. That was my career right out of college. I started out in sales at a very prominent company called Dun and Bradstreet at the time. And I pretty rapidly worked my way up, was recognized as I'll call it a young gun for lack of a better description. Me and a handful of others, the company was making major changes and fast tracking people rather than what they did traditionally. And I was one of those hands selected. So I was seen as a high riser when I got established at the company. And then I transitioned into sales management, where I started to have my eyes opened about human behavior, about what causes people to be unsuccessful as much as successful, and earned what I call a lot of business leadership stripes at the time, right? Because I was handling our office up in Columbus. I was our PR front person for the company, as well as leading my team and training, hiring, firing, and a whole slew of things at the time at my apex of my first career, I'd say.
Okay, so then at what point did you decide this is no longer for me?
Well, it's very interesting. I wasn't very happy. I'm going to be honest about that, because the company, I felt, was avoiding some harsh realities that they needed to face and deal with and change in front of, right? And one was how we did business, how we handled our customers. Like I give you, for instance, we had a price increase every year, no matter what. And the
Mm.
salespeople just had to learn how to handle the customers and deal with that. And they would say, oh, it's easy to justify. Well, no, I worked during a time where we had economic decline and the GDP was shrinking, and yet we're still raising our prices. And so there was quite a few things that the company was failing to come to grips with. Another one was the advent and the breaking out of data. That's when other companies like LexisNexis and Westlaw were first starting to get into the information industry where Dun and Bradstreet competed. So there was a lot of things going on. I felt like the leadership just wasn't being on front edge and really reacting and responding properly to the environment. But then one of my friends and coworkers actually signed and did a whistleblower letter, and all hell broke loose. So I was given a choice. I could either take the company side, which I didn't agree with, or I could take the whistleblower side, and I knew what was going to happen. And that's exactly what happened. I took the whistleblower side. It killed my career at Dun & Bradstreet. Now, the interesting thing is what I didn't consider is all the corporate downfall that would happen and where that would travel. And so here I am. My name's in the Wall Street Journal because a reporter called and asked me for comment. Of course, I did the company thing. I said no comment. At the same time, internally with the execs and everything else, I'm defending the whistleblowers, saying, yeah, they're naive maybe, but their points are valid and we need to change. And I was trying to bring them together so this thing wouldn't blow up. Well, it blew up because the execs were stand on their position. We've done nothing wrong. Everyone does this, and the whistleblowers were locked in on their position. And the next thing you know, we're in the paper, we're in the news. My name's getting drug into it because one of the people reported to me. I was his sales manager. And then I was given a choice. Either I go public or I just try to slide out of this. I tried to slide out of this, and I actually had a fifth interview with a company. And once my name got tied to it, they dropped the pursuit. I was positive they were going to offer me the job. But I Bill Clinton them, honestly. They said, what's your involvement? And I said, well, that depends upon your definition of involvement. Well, They didn't like my answer. That ended my corporate career. Nobody would touch me with a 10-foot pole. So I didn't feel like I was given much choice. I was like, if you want to make a living now, you have to go out on your own. And so that's what I did. And unfortunately, at the time, not a lot of preparation and planning into that, because I'm in the middle of this 9-month firestorm of this whistleblower thing. And I'm being talked to and called by every executive at the company. What's your position? What's going on? Can we move them off of this? I mean, that was daily, not to mention my district manager too. So when I left, it was pretty much, okay, the hell with it. 2020 asked me if I'd appear on a news show with the two whistleblowers. I decided my career's over. I might as well do it and stand for what I think is right. So I did that. And then about 2 weeks later, I turned in my resignation letter and quit. And that was my start into the entrepreneurial business environment. We didn't even have an idea of what the business was going to do. We all had a lot of experience in the business information industry, so we were pretty confident we wanted to do something in that area, but we hadn't really talked and thought about it. We didn't start doing that till after we all quit. Well, the two whistleblowers were fired. I quit. So I actually went into business with the two whistleblowers. And ultimately, we decided to start a consulting company. But it was a pretty harsh drop off. And I would say I was not in the correct emotional state of mind to actually do that. And we all took about 4 to 6 weeks to go through some type of emotional recovery.
Yeah, can you explain the correct emotional state of mind? Like what was missing or what?
Well, first of all, you need a decent level of confidence and belief in yourself. After having get churned in an emotional whirlwind, I would say your emotional state's not real stable. As an entrepreneur, and as a now again entrepreneur, and now a 10-time entrepreneur starting businesses, I would say most people overglorify being in your own business. Like so much of today, they put on all the ribbons and the bows and the nice things about it. Nobody talks to you about the ugliness that can come with it, right? The doubt, the loneliness, owing money and not having any cash flow, right? All those things. And you need to be emotionally stable. The more emotionally stable you are, the better. And people would say, wow, Al, I'm surprised you're not saying be driven and all this energy. Well, you need energy, but I would say concentrated and focused energy and strategic energy. And when you're emotionally beaten up, you don't bring that to the table, right? So the better you can get all that stuff aligned and feel good about yourself and your drive and determination, the better you are starting off on a business startup.
So it sounds like there's a lot of personal development that needed to be done in the very beginning.
Well, the nice thing about it is if you're in sales, you are taught how to get people to change and make decisions. So I think a salesperson is set up to become an entrepreneur because of that. They're also used to the pressure, right? The pressure of driving decisions and getting people to make decisions. If I sat back and looked at it, I would say a salesperson really is kind of a change agent. I'm coming in, I'm talking to you about your existing conditions, and I'm convincing you that change is important and is needed. So that's exactly what you do as any new business with your customers. And so I think as a sales professional, you have that in your back pocket automatically. And then the other thing you have is the capability of dealing with pressure. Because a salesperson, especially ours, 60 to 70% of my income was commission based as a salesperson. So if I'm not selling, I'm not eating, I'm not living. And so if you have that, then you have two of the big things taken care of. I would say the thing that a lot of salespeople miss when they start a business is the financial and control side of things. Now, the nice thing about it being at Dun and Bradstreet, they sold financial information. So I not only took accounting in college, I got a business crash course on how you read financial documents, what's important of a well-run business, and the ultimate thing that cash is king and you have to have cash flow. So that was drilled into us as part of our professional training program at that company. So that helped too. So those are the things I think you absolutely have to have. And that's the thing I've noticed with people who started their own business, and the big slap in the face I have to give them. They always are shocked about sales and the fact they have to sell. And I'm like, you want people to buy this? What do you think? Well, they want to just hire people. I'm like, who's more passionate about your company than you? Who knows more about your business and your service or your product than you? If you can't sell it, I don't know how you expect to hire somebody to be able to do it. You need to understand the mechanisms and the processes so you can educate people, but also hold them accountable. And so that's the big thing. A lot of people want to start their own business and they want somebody else to handle the sales. I think that's a formula for disaster, actually. So you have to get comfortable with the fact that you're going to be putting decisions in front of people and you need to be able to influence them.
Yeah, that's one of the hard lessons that I've had to kind of learn myself because I have a degree in accounting. I was in
Mhm.
consulting, and most of my career I was in the back office, not really talking to anybody. And so going out and realizing that you have to learn how to sell is, I mean, it's a big thing. So I always look at people in sales as people that have kind of a leg up if they want to go on. They could do anything really. I feel like they could start their own business because they already have that super important skill.
Well, I think all of us have that skill. So, John, I think there's a few things. If you have drive and determination, conscientiousness, and an average level of intelligence, I think you've got everything you need. Just have to be willing to flex and learn. So I believe that, but I think there's some things that the experience just kind of helps you step into other areas. And being a salesperson, being forced to understand and learn how to accept rejection, I think is a big one, right? And I really do think that's a major hurdle most people need to get over starting out on their own.
Yeah, I think that was also a difficult lesson is you need to hit and the way to kind of frame it or change the mindset is, well, you need X number of no's to get to every single yes. So
Right.
learning how to be happy with the no's is super important.
Absolutely. I don't know if happy's the right word. Being able to live with might be better, but yeah, something like along those lines, right?
Yeah. So then you have your consulting company, and how long does that go before you decide you want to go back into the workforce?
Well, so first things first, we figured out what we were going to do, figured out how to sell it, figured out how to position it. We really drove that baby home. So I did that for about 10 years. Then, a part of that process, started a new company selling international credit reports and collection services, and then competitive intelligence. I would have stayed at that company because that company was exciting as all get out, and I was getting to really flex there. But I had a business partner, and that's the other lesson I have. If you have a business partner, make sure your prenup is rock solid and you've covered everything, because you need a prenup more so with a business partner, I think, than you do with a spouse. And so that's the learning lesson I took from that. So I had to leave there. Then I started and went into business with my brother, an e-commerce company, and ran that. So I had a slew of successes. I'm 6-3, 6 wins, 3 losses on my 9 startups that I've had so far. I'm on my 10th right now. So, what caused me to go back to corporate America is a great question. So, it wasn't me, it was my spouse, my wife. So, when you're married, it's not just important what your risk level and tolerance is, it's important what their risk level and tolerances are. So, by the time I went back in, we had 2 children. My son was just like 6 months old, and my wife was freaking out about healthcare and costs and how we're going to carry that as I'm looking to start another business, right? So I'm I have another soured partnership going off on my own finally, and I look at her and she's freaking out. Literally, she's got this ton of anxiety. She's not sleeping, and it's there where I say, as a good partner, I have to consider her and her position. And so, in spite of us having what most people would consider a decent set of assets backing us up, because I built a nice nest egg, she still was having trouble dealing with it. And that's when I decided to go back into, corporate America. But I was looking for the right opportunity. So I wasn't going to just take any job. I wasn't going to go back into sales or sales management. I knew I was beyond that. So I was looking for the right opportunity, and I found one in the automotive software industry where they wanted somebody to come in and start up a new division. That was actually my nice startup. So I started a whole digital marketing division inside that company, servicing the automotive community. So, but the reason why is my wife, anxiety, stress, risk tolerance.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
But you still found something that kind of, I think, check both boxes because you got to have that life of a startup, but still
Right.
get the stability and the benefits of a regular job.
Right. And if I would have done it on my own, I would have made about 300 times the amount of money I did working for somebody else, because
Mhm.
we were very successful. I was given a task of starting this new division and delivering 40% EBITDA my first year, my first full year. And I was like, oh my God, but I did it. We actually even exceeded that in years 2, 3, and 4, by the way. So it was a pretty impressive start. At the same time, my wife was happy. So I was able to do that for 6 years, but the control and the bureaucracy. And I would just blatantly say the stupidity I had to fight just got to be too much. And that's why I decided to leave there. And I was considering starting a company at that time, but then Procter and Gamble reached out to me and recruited me over LinkedIn. And the thing is I tried to start out at Procter and Gamble right out of college, and I was in this accelerator program they had, but economy was tough, and they didn't offer me the job. And so I viewed it as a pursuit and obtainment of a long lost goal. So the offer was just too good and enticing. They were hiring me to lead up this brand new industry shaking procurement solution. And so I was going to be leading that. And I decided take one more move. Let's go to P&G and see how it shakes out.
Got it. Okay. So how do you get recruited by these like super successful companies?
Well, P&G reached out and recruited me over LinkedIn, believe it or not. Because I did social media marketing, I felt every time there was a new social media platform, I had a profile, I started building a following, I started putting a presence on there. I did the same thing on LinkedIn. And so they were looking for someone who had digital solution design, development, and launch experience. And that's what I did in the digital marketing space at the software company that I worked at. So they reached out and said, "Hey, we have an opportunity. Are you interested?" I'm always a why not guy. So I was like, why not listen to what they have to say? So I did. And we had several conversations. 9-month interview process, though, right?
Oh,
So 9 months between the first time I went down there to when they gave me the offer. But it's just the opportunity was so big. And anytime you tell me we're going to work on something and this third party that you're building with is going to go take it out and sell it to the industry and revolutionize the industry, I was all on board, right? So that's something I could really sink my teeth into. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. They had made a lot of mistakes and bad decisions by the time I got there. They had worked on this thing for over 3 years. And I actually, well, 18 months later, I wound up helping kill it. So here I am. I go for this big transition, go to work for this long sought after company. And then the reason why I went there, I had to shut down. So I went on to several other ventures there. I got hooked up with this great senior vice president who saw that I was a little bit of a wild card, but if you let me run, go and find value and deliver it. And so I set about, we changed the culture of his organization, put in a first class inside corporate communication program. I helped lead efforts to digitize the space, got to play around with a lot of things, meet a lot of people around the world, and a lot of adventure and excitement. So that's why I stayed there. The reason why I decided to leave, go back on entrepreneurial road was, again, the bureaucracy and the hurdles. I just think large companies, they just have so many safety checks and they get in the way of so much innovation and true disruption. They say they want it, but they have no idea how to bring it about. And it's more about stopping harmful things to it than it is creating new systems, right? But they can't bring themselves to it. And so the frustration just got so high. I said, I got to get the hell out of here. This place is driving me insane. Because they would say, we want innovation. As soon as you try to do it, they get in your way. And then they explain, well, why aren't you doing it? You would
yeah.
point it out and they would say, well, yeah, why can't you do it anyway? Well, that's not how the world works. And so this last venture, this last step away, that's what really drove it, is just that I felt like too much reins, too many hurdles, too many safety protocols to really go out and make something happen. I was ready to go back out and do it on my own. Only this time, right mindset. I know what it takes. I've got a lot of experience. I have a huge nest egg. The health insurance thing is well addressed and taken care of, thanks to Procter and Gamble. As a matter of fact, they have a very attractive retirement benefit program, and now it's just all comfort and fun and games, really, for me. I really don't have to make any money, but that's not why I ever started a business. It was never really solely about the money. It was about challenge, making a difference and a change, and making the world, whatever piece of it I was in, a better place.
So you're in a spot where you've had a really good career, you've made a lot of money, and you don't have to do anything if you don't want to, but you're going out and you're building a business now.
Yes. That's absolutely it. And some of my friends are like, well, why? Do you have to work? No, but that's not why I work. I've never worked just for a paycheck or for a business or for money. That's where I get my personal challenge, my fulfillment and self-worth. And I think if more people approached it that way, they would really see that they would be a lot happier in their life, because my work is one of my challenges in life. And I feel like if you're not challenging yourself, how do you feel alive? I don't
Mhm.
understand these people that want to just exist on their couch watching TV and doing something fun on the weekends. I don't get that, right? So much of your life happens during all those other times. Where's your fulfillment? Where's your challenge? And I think we need to be challenged to be fulfilled.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, you hear all these people that have more money than they could ever need, but they're out
Right?
still working, and people are asking, "Why are you working so hard?" Well, it's fun. We enjoy doing it.
It's a challenge. It really is. I really think that's it. I think it's a game. So at the software company, I work for a billionaire. He's the richest person nobody ever heard of. And so I watched how hard he worked. Now he had fun. He had a yacht, he had a big ranch out in Colorado. We'd go on these extravagant trips, but he worked. And that's because that's where his personal challenge was. Right. And so I think I learned some things from watching him.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So, I mean, you have this story of you left the corporate world, you can't to go do your own thing, and then you came back to it, and then you left again. So, I guess this first time when you left, you didn't really have a plan.
Right.
What was one of the biggest mindset hurdles you had to get over that you haven't talked about?
So that's a great question. And so I was thinking about this. So I think it's the things everybody takes for granted. It's all the little things that make life easier in a business office setting, right? It's your office supplies, it's your laptop security, it's your phones. It's all
Software.
those little systems that you need to operate that you don't think about until you're totally dependent on them. And I would say that was the first big shock. It's something we always took for granted because it was always there. But then all of a sudden you're off on your own and you got to think about it. And when we
Yeah.
first started, we started off in one room in an office incubator, right? There's three of us in this office. So first of all, sound is a big issue. So all little things like that, and then all the expenses and how they all add up. And then not to mention health insurance. I grew up on profit sharing and 401k. Well, we instituted that about a year in. We only had 10 employees and we instituted it. And, all of our advisors were shocked, couldn't believe we were doing it. Well, we steadfastly believe this is what you do to keep your employees and keep them happy. You help them invest for the long term and things like that. So we had a lot of things most small businesses don't because we brought that with us from a large corporation. But those are the shocks, right? So who handles that? I remember I got put in charge of health insurance just because I was stupid enough to say, oh, the three of us were arguing. It's like I took that. My God, all the intricacies and all the things. Every insurance company has a different plan. They're talking about the same issues. They use different words. Finally, one year I lost my mind. I said, we're not using your terms. We're using mine. This is what we're calling this. This is what we're calling that. And I handed it out to all five companies bidding for our business. I said, if you use your terms, you're out, right? It just so it made sense and I could compare because they try to make it so confusing, it seems like. And then we went through all those healthcare cost increases, right? That was just huge. Most people don't realize a healthcare cost there for a while, and I think they still are going up like this 25 to 30% a year. So go ahead and have 15, 20 employees and see your costs going up like that, especially if you're paying for your employees' healthcare costs, which we were.
Right.
Oh my God, it's a runaway expense that has to be managed. And then God help you if one of your employees has a high risk individual on in their family, because we had that, and what that did to our healthcare costs was really overly dramatic. And I had another friend that has a business. He was telling me he had a family of five that because of Obamacare, he's paying $30,000 a year for his healthcare. That's not a small chunk of change, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at all that, it's sort of like that's why I say healthcare. And then most people don't understand either. It's anywhere from 40 to 60% of all personal bankruptcies they say are due to healthcare cost. That you had a medical condition and the amount gets so high it causes you to declare bankruptcy. That is a huge overhead issue that needs to be addressed. So anybody that tells me they're going out in business, that's one of the first things I ask them. How much of a nest egg do you have? How are you planning on handling your healthcare challenges, right? Because it's not a minor thing, especially if you have a family.
Yeah, when I was looking at it for my family, it's easily $30 to $36,000 a year just to keep the same coverage that I had before.
Right.
And it's insane because
Yes.
most of the time you're not using. You hope you don't have to use it, but then it's a big money suck.
Now, back in the day, we used to go just to catastrophic, but catastrophic was a lot cheaper back then. So basically, you paid everything up to $10 or $15,000 hit, and then catastrophic kicked in. Well, because the way they helped fix it with Obamacare, they took a lot of that stuff away. right? And so that's the interesting thing you're dealing with, the realities today. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
a little disturbing. But I would say those were some of the big shocks. And then the other thing is self accountability. So I would say that's
Mhm.
the next big watch out I tell people. Because what people will do, especially for people who are hesitant about the sales side of things. So remember I said cash flow is king. So in order to get cash, you have to get business. In order to get business, you have to sell. So when something's really ugly and has some negative emotions to it and you're uncomfortable with it, people will find things to get in the way. And so that's the other thing I advocate. Set up on your calendar, this is my business sales time, and own it and really make sure you do it. So that's the thing I drive home with everybody that I counsel. Make yourself do that, if nothing else, because you need the business to get the cash and you got to get the cash. So it's a pretty simple formula.
Yeah, you can't get anywhere without you have to prospect, unfortunately. That's just
Yep.
part of the business.
Right. And the longer it takes to get business, the longer it takes to get the cash. It's a vicious little cycle, right?
Yeah. So what are some books or what's a book that you recommend to help you get over these mindset issues, professional development issues, all that?
So, first of all, I'm an avid reader and I advocate for everybody to be avid readers. I don't know if you've ever read, but a lot of these real successful, wealthy people like Mark Cuban, Mark Zuckerberg, they're voracious readers. And I think there's a reason why, because that's how you get knowledge. And you can read it in a little blurb, but you don't get it emotionally set in. There's something about reading in the act of taking your time and ingesting something and working it over your mind that makes it more powerful. I don't understand all the dynamics. I just know it happens. So that's the first thing. As far as some of my favorites, I'm going way back. The Greatest Salesman That Ever Lived was a book that
Mhm.
really impacted me because it has some simple, hard truths, right? It talks about how you need to pursue and how you need to go after it, and it talks about the simple mechanisms. And then the other one that I love, and this was written back I think in the 80s, was by Dr. Dennis Waitley, called The Winner's Edge. And the reason why I love this book is he's got some cold hard truths that I think are universal for anybody to be successful. And one of those is change. If you don't like today or you want to be better tomorrow than you are today, what's the one thing you absolutely have to do or it's not going to happen? You have to be willing to change. And what are people really reluctant to do? Change. They all say they want to do better. They all say they want better results, but they're not willing to change. Well, if you're not willing to change, that first thing's never going to happen. And so he even brings up hard real life examples of people who had life and death right in front of them and they don't change, to show you just how difficult it is for people. So that's why I love that book. And then the other thing is you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to be successful. And this is the thing at P&G, I talked to people and they thought that they could easily go out and start their own business. Deep down inside, I had in the back of my mind, there's no way in hell, because when we have a report that's due, you won't suck it up and do 4 extra hours of work the night before to get it done to follow through with your commitment. You can't do that when you're in business by yourself, right? I mean, it's you. Everything's you. The buck stops here is the ultimate rule. And so you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And it's interesting. I've told people that, and I've told people that I felt like really trusted and respected me, and they still didn't understand. So we had this one project for my vice president, and it was a big deal. He was going to show it to P&G's execs, our C-suite, and we were running behind. Well, one night I worked till 4 a.m. to get it done. Right? I did that a couple of nights to bring it through on time. And when they found out, they were shocked. I go, well, I told you, I do whatever it takes. That's my motto, and I got it from that book. I lived that with our own business. So when you're looking at a struggling business and this one account can make or break you, you do whatever it takes to bring that account home, or you have to. And
Yeah.
so that's a book that near and dear to my heart. And then the last one is Misbehaving, story about behavioral economics. And I love that book because it talks about how we make irrational decisions. And that book is extremely impactful for that, because I think it's the human condition. So many times in our lives, we don't sit back and really think about the rationality of our decisions. We just go and do them. That book points out exactly how that works, how that looks like. And to me, it totally changed the way I make purchase decisions. Now I'm consciously about it and keeping those things in the back of my mind anytime I buy anything. But also teaches you how to influence other people. That's not a sales book. It's a human behavioral book, which is probably even better. Richard H. Thaler, Thaler. And I mean, I think the book is brilliant. It's Misbehaving, the Making of Behavioral Economics. And I bought that book, and after the first two chapters, I fell in love with that book, and it has not disappointed me. And I used that throughout my career since I read that book. And I don't know, I think I probably read it probably 7, 8 years ago.
Oh yeah, thank you for sharing those.
You're welcome.
Definitely looking forward to getting into them. Well, we're coming up on time, and I've definitely appreciated this conversation. I just do have one last question. So, knowing what you know now, what's some advice you would give to yourself when you made that decision to leave Dun and Bradstreet?
I would start out with, don't think you have to know everything. No one ever does. Keep an open mind, flex, and go learn. You'll learn what you need to as long as you keep pushing and trying. The other thing I would say is regarding customers, it's all about delivering value, and that's where you should be focused. You shouldn't be focused on trying to make a sale. You should be focused on finding a way to deliver value to your customer. This one change in mind shift will totally affect and alter the way you go about pursuing business. And I believe there's a subconscious level that gets picked up where people will trust you faster because of it. Your words change, your kind of approach changes, and they understand you're there to serve them. And when they pick up on that, that's where you have a real chance of really creating something special. And then the third thing is be kind to yourself, because a lot of the world won't be. Don't beat yourself up for your failures. Learn from them and move on. Too many times I think we get into this, got to be hard and bad on yourself. The world's hard enough. You need to be a cheerleader for yourself and keep yourself up and going, especially when you're in it on your own, or primarily on your own, because there's not enough cheerleaders out there. So you better do it for yourself. I think those three things will see you through a lot of nasty little storms. Um, and I would say what I've learned from mentoring people who've done startups, and I have a lot of friends that own their own businesses. There's several characteristics I've noticed about people. Is one, they never seem happy or satisfied with how their business is doing. Now, I kind of understand that, and at the same time, that really bothers me, because where's their joy? I think, and people like you, John, you're creating something. You need to reward yourself and give yourself some joy and some time to sit back and take it all in and be happy about it, right? Life is too short to constantly be pressuring yourself. You have to, smell the roses a little bit along the way. It makes it a lot better and more enjoyable. The other thing is they always let, a lot of times, inconsequential things get in the way. I think the people who are more successful and happier have this real hard line, and they're really good at making this judgment. Important, not important. Important, not important. There's only a few things that are really important. Everything else is just noise and distraction. Take that noise and distraction stuff and park it over here. Focus and make sure you understand what the key things are, and that's where you focus and spend most of your time. And I think you'll find more success.
Yeah, when you talk about people never being happy in their business, it just immediately thought about the book The Gap and the Gain, and just
That's
trying to learn how to celebrate the small wins. It's still, I don't know, to be emotionally celebratory when something good happens, big or small. It's still like a learning, something that I'm learning, but
mm,
I think it makes a world of difference, because if you're always, one of the biggest problems is we're always chasing a moving goal. So once we hit our goal, it's like, great, now go on to the next. And we never stop and think, oh, I was able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. Just, I need to hit my next goal.
Well, and the other thing, I think you ought to journal. And you ought to journal those small wins and talk about how you feel at the moment, because I've done that some. And when I get down, I go back and read those things, and you can't believe the power that it brings you back up to, and reminds you faced challenges before and you overcame them. That proof of what you've done is extremely invaluable, and I can't believe more people don't do it. And I'm going to hit you with something. So I'm writing a
Mhm.
book on influence, right? I'm about 85, 90% of the way done. And I've got this one chapter that I talk about a winning pitch. And if you think about it, a winning pitch is a series of one smaller pitches until you get the big yes. So the first thing you have to do, and John, you do this when a sales call, you have to call and talk to them to be willing to listen to you. Win one. Then you have to convince them it's worth sharing more information with you so you can figure out exactly how you can help them. Win two. Then you have to sell them on spending more time in meeting with you so you can get deeper in the weeds. Win four. Then you present your big plan and you talk them into doing it. Win five. So every big win is nothing but a buildup of a small set of systemic wins. And that's why and those big wins happen a lot less than those small wins. That's why you need to reward the small wins. There's what really matters, because that's the little stuff that you can actually impact right in front of you and carries you through to the next one. And so celebrating those small wins, I don't think is a minor thing. I think it's a major deal to keep you going through the ordeal, because you're fighting the world. It feels like you're fighting the world sometimes, doesn't it? I mean, have you ever had one of those days? Like, oh my
Yeah,
God, it seems like everything goes wrong.
yeah, yesterday it was definitely like that.
Right. And it's like sometimes you wonder how you're going to get through it. Right. And
Yeah.
that's why you need to celebrate those small wins, because, man, that is engine or fuel for the engine, and it keeps you moving. And that's the thing. Always motion, always forward. Because as soon as you stop moving forward, you know the world's gaining on you or passing you by, right? So that's the other thing. Got to keep going.
I like how you broke it down into 5 small wins, because then I just look at it analytically with an accounting background, that you can see where in the process is your bottleneck and what you need to improve on.
Right. And I would tell you, actually, when I sold, that's what I did. I broke down my whole process. So first one was profiling. So that was step one. How much
Mhm.
time do you dedicate for that? Then step two is cold calling. Then step three is presentations. Then step four is follow up, right? Lockdowns. And then step five is close and sale. And I tracked each one of those, how much time I did it. And I had it down that where to sell one piece of new business, I needed to make 15 cold calls,
Mm.
and just like clockwork. And then if I had problems, then I would just go look and see where I lost it. And that's where I would go back and pay attention to. And then in order
Yeah,
to get better, affect the front thing up first, because it affects everything downstream, right? So I'd always focus on the front end first. So that was like
mhm.
getting better at my cold calls. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you do that, you can systematize pretty much anything in life if you're willing to put in the time and really analyze it. And that system was very effective. I used it for my whole sales office, and I doubled our new business, because what I found was a lot of people just weren't making sure they were taking care of the ugly stuff up front, which is the cold calling, right? Nobody
Yeah.
likes cold calling. The customers don't like it. The salespeople don't like it. Nobody likes it, right?
Right. But it's a necessary evil in the sales. I mean, in any industry, I feel like, I think it's from Jeb Blunt, something in prospecting. But so you have
Right.
profiling, cold calling, and then what's between cold calling and the follow up?
Well, that's your presentation, right? So
Okay.
cold calling, you get your first appointment, right? You're gathering more
Mhm.
information, and then you have a presentation after that, right? So
Yeah.
so what we were taught to do is try to roll all that to one, and some people you could. Other
Yeah.
people, I always felt it was better to come back with a specialized plan, right? People like
Mhm.
to feel that they're different. It kills
Yeah.
me. Everybody likes to feel that they're different and unique, and pretty much we're all a lot more alike than we want to believe, right? And
Yeah.
so, but some people, you make them feel special and they respond better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
every process is a little bit differently. You just need to figure out what the steps of your process are and then program it out, and then hold yourself accountable to it. I mean, that's the thing. So I found out 2 4-hour sessions of cold calling a week, I'd sell 6 pieces of new business in a month, and the average was less than 3. So I more than doubled my peers
Right.
when I sold at Dun and Bradstreet. And there was a handful of guys in the whole and gals in the whole country that sold to that level, and I was one of them as a new person. It was all because of my system, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Systems are really important to do anything well. And another one of those
And,
hard lessons.
and consistently, right? So that's one of the truths on LinkedIn is consistency. Get something that works and then perform it consistently. I mean, that
Yeah.
really is. And that comes down to that forced focus, right?
Yeah.
When you don't do something consistently, why? All the other shit gets in the way. Sorry about
Right.
dropping that word, but that's
It's
what it
okay.
is. It's not
Yeah.
important. It gets in the way. Well, I don't want to give you a lot of editing work, right?
No, this software that I'm using is really,
Uh,
really good at breaking down and editing for me. And even if you and I would have like a conversation that it thinks that it should not be included, it'll mark
yeah.
it and say like, this sounds like a
Oh,
background. Yeah. It's very cool.
neat, neat. So I looked this up. Riverside is one of the top podcast platforms, it turns out. So see, I like to learn. So as soon as you said we were on Riverside, I went and checked it out, right? Started
Yeah.
researching it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. It'll keep the clips for you. All these things I used to have to do in different platforms does it all at once. And then if you pair this with this thing called Perplexity's Comet browser, you can
Uh-huh.
have the Comet browser go and say, "Okay, well these are the best hooks based on the performance of your YouTube," and then just go in and pull those.
Wow, cool.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah.
So something I want to hit you with because I
Uh-huh.
wrote another book, Field Guide for Today's Business Gunslingers. It's about
Hmm.
change agents.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hit people with is fear. So people don't change because of fear. And
Right.
fear is a real powerful motivating force, right? So you'll do twice as much out of fear than you will to seek reward, by the way, 2 to 4 times, according to scientific research. So, but see, you can turn that on its head. What you want to do is you want to bring up all the fear people have from what they're in pain for what they're doing today, and then that drives them to change. Most people sell change wrong. Don't hold up the reward. Remind them of the fear and pain that they're enduring right now, and that'll go away when they make the change. That's how I propose people sell change.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I think it's one of the Tony Robbins books where it was you have to be more afraid of the current situation than the change
Right.
itself. And yeah, I mean, you see people that kind of get stuck in their ways, like, I'm too old to change. Like, I don't want to be like that. That scares me. I want to constantly grow and maybe not physically peak, but mentally peak when I'm on my deathbed. I don't want to be in any kind of state of decline or anything like that.
I think that's the right attitude. You get that attitude, you're ahead of 90% of the world. That's the scary part. Doesn't take a whole lot, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it really doesn't. Yeah, most
Yeah.
people think to be better than most of their competition, they have to do like these 20 things. And I think it's just some fundamental things and it drives everything else. So I think there's foundational keys to life. If you've got those, the other stuff is superfluous because those foundational drive everything that's important, right? Be honest,
Yeah.
trustworthy, capable, open minded, flexible. There you go. Go get them.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite books is Atomic Habits
All
because
right.
I always wanted to have these big, massive changes all at once, but that's
Mm.
unfortunately not how it works. You can get very discouraged very quickly. Just have these again, go for these small goals, celebrate these small wins, and then it'll just compound.
If it's a big habit, break it up into small habits and get the simplest one first, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely right. And that is the key. And the other thing, most people, something else I've noticed is bad habits, right? So I have some bad habits. I'm
Yeah.
imperfect. One of the things I'm very self aware and I openly admit my flaws. Hopefully you get that, right? So when you're trying to eliminate a bad habit, the world does not reward you for doing it half as much because they still see you doing it. So you have to reward yourself. And the other thing is don't try to eliminate it, try to replace it because it's much easier replacing it with something than it is just cutting it out and leaving an emptiness there. And so those are the two keys about changing bad habits.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, so I'm a human behavioralist. I think anybody who's really driven to be successful, you ultimately become an amateur human behavioralist. You have to understand how the human mind works. And you almost gets to the point where you kind of trick yourself, right? It's really kind of interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, it's finding ways to manipulate your own self in your own mind to get to what you want.
Right. And that's why I like the journaling and reading because when you read powerful things about yourself, you're programming in your subconscious, right? That's the
Yeah.
cool thing about that. And that's where I think the value of journaling helps. And other something else is I noticed too is whenever I've been really stressed, I journal right before I go to bed. It allows me to sleep. Because if I'm really
Mm.
stressed out and I go lay down, Jesus, I toss and turn. And when I journal, it's so cathartic. And I read about that in a psychology book. I don't understand all the mechanisms, but it works. And so I know there's something powerful with writing that down. And writing stuff down helps you memorize it and remember it almost like 3 to 1. So I
Yeah.
mean, when people talk to me about what's one of your basic, clues or unknown things, it shouldn't be unknown, but I talk to them about journaling.
Yeah.
It's been really powerful in my life.
Yeah,
So
I'm really going to start. That's it for today's episode of Life After W2. I'm John Chan, and I appreciate you tuning in. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who's ready to take control of their financial future. And if you're curious about how self-directed retirement accounts can unlock opportunities in alternative investing, grab our free guide. It's packed with insights to help you get started. The link's in the description. See you next time.